What's up guys, Ruppy here, and welcome to the first round of playoffs for the UNPL. I'm not gonna lie, it feels weird being here. But then again, I guess that's kind of been the theme of my season. Just the stark turnaround between last season where I just barely missed playoffs to this season where now here I am in playoffs. And if you want to add all together, as the third overall seed technically between both divisions, it is mind-blowing to me that I had that kind of turnaround. But I cannot deny the work that my team has put in to get us to this point. It has been arguably one of the best rosters I think I've ever had, looking back on everything. And I am looking forward to seeing how far we can go in playoffs now that we're here. See if we can keep the run going, keep the dream alive. So by virtue of being the second seed in the Naranja Division, I was afforded the opportunity to pick my opponent. And after a lot of thought and a bunch of potential options, I will tell you right off the bat, since I could pick from either division, I ignored most of the Naranja Division that did make playoffs, for the simple fact that I am notoriously bad when it comes to playoff rematches, especially if I won the regular season encounter. So that ruled out the vast majority of the teams that I actually could have picked from that had made playoffs. So for the most part, I looked to the UVA division. We were allowed to make 3 picks, and it would go in descending order because technically Hopeless and Tone, who both finished with a better record and differential than me, if any of theirs aligned with my first pick, then they would get priority. That is kind of how that worked. But I ended up getting the matchup I want. This might sound a bit crazy, but I really am looking forward to this matchup, and I am looking forward to seeing how it plays out. The poison I have picked for myself for the first round of playoffs. From the UVA division, we are playing the Copenhagen Gallades, coached by GentlemanThomas. And I'm sure that name might sound familiar to many of you. There's a reason I picked him, and it's not simply because, on paper, I think I actually have a good matchup against his roster in many respects. There's a deeper meaning to it. For those of you who have followed the SPL, GentlemanThomas was in its first season, and he made playoffs there, before being knocked out in the first round. That alone, considering the amount of talent that MV, Pokeaim, Shuckle King, all those guys get together for that league, speaks volumes to me that he was able to have an incredible run and make playoffs with them. I believe he is also currently in the BBR as well, so he's basically where I once was and would like to be again in that respect. He is an extremely talented battler. His prep is phenomenal, and I really want... His record, he may have finished the season with a 4-5 record and -2 differential, but do not let that fool you. This is going to be a challenge, and I honestly welcome that challenge. I want to see how well I ultimately match up here, which is why I was willing to pick him as my first opponent. So, with that said, let's leave our locker room behind as my team is, as usual, chilling, getting ready for the game ahead. This one's going to be a doozy, and I've done a lot of thinking about how I wanted to approach this matchup. So, as we switch on over to our Teambuilder, our chalkboard, Pokemon Showdown, let's throw his roster up on the right, and let's go get into what I am up against. Let's see what I have done to myself here. His roster consists of the following: Darkrai, Garchomp, Sneasler, Empoleon, Comfey, Thundurus Incarnate, Mesprit, Bramblegast, Rhyperior, Kamala, and Go-Goat. His Tera captains are Comfey, which can terrestrialize into a Fairy, Ground, or Steel type, and Rhyperior, which can terrestrialize into a Ground, Grass, or Fairy type. There is a lot about this roster that I have every right to be afraid of. Darkrai outspeeds my entire team. It is a powerful special attacker. Just because it's not Ubers anymore does not mean that thing can't be a threat. So I do have to play my cards right, especially since it does get access to ways to kind of shut down the things that I have to deal with it. Garchomp is, especially in this matchup, I'm expecting it to be basically a wall specifically designed to try to chip away at my Pokemon passively and ultimately put me in a bad spot. Sneasler is definitely the biggest cause for concern here because that thing is stupidly fast, it outruns my entire team, and with either a Choice Scarf or if it activates Unburden, it can make sure it stays that way. Sneasler is a huge threat, and the fact that I have not played a Sneasler in the regular season should tell you about how much I'm worried about that particular mon, because it does have the potential to be a problem if I let it. Thundurus has a lot going for it as well. It's got good bulk. It's got prankster shenanigans that can potentially throw my way. Rhyperior is actually a nasty Tera Captain against me in this matchup. It's actually probably the best Tera Captain he could bring. I would have said that about Comfey, but as much as Comfey could be a threat and I would not be surprised to see it come, the fact that he didn't go Tera Fire on it, I think actually makes it less valuable in this matchup when you compare it to what I've got. So I'm expecting Tera Rhyperior, and I don't know what Tera type he would go with, but all of them actually cause me problems in one way or another, because that mon is a pain in the ass to take down. So, how exactly do I plan on dealing with this, you ask? Well, let's go ahead and get into it. And it begins with Arctic the Mamoswine, because I'm going to be blunt. Thomas's team has a very bad ice weakness, and I am hoping to exploit that to the best of my abilities. Nothing fancy here. Adamant, max attack, max speed, choice band. I've got Icicle Crash and Ice Shard because Ice Shard as priority off the set is actually hitting a lot of these things really hard, since a lot of his team is weak to ice. Icicle Crash is threatening. Earthquake deals with the things that would resist ice, which really is only Empoleon, honestly. Not to mention it also is a way to potentially threaten Sneasler if he tries switching that thing in if it's not Air Balloon. Knockoff is there to get rid of items and ultimately try to make my life significantly easier. Especially with Rhyperior, because I'm going to be upfront. A lot of my prep was initiated by a game I watched. I believe it was Thomas's Week 2 game against Rebel Trainer, because Rebel Trainer's team also contained Iron Valiant and Scissor, since both divisions had separate drafts. Granted, that's where the similarities between his team and mine end, but I did take some of the things that Thomas did bring in prep for that game, and did keep them in mind for this one with some of my own prep. But that doesn't change the fact that Mamoswine could be a big threat. I mean, Knockoff being able to get rid of potential items that would stop its rampage is certainly appreciated. Not to mention it gives me a way to threaten Mesprit and Bramble gets kind of threatened anyway, but definitely Mesprit. So I do have options. We can make this work. That then leads to my next mon, Warforce the Scissor. And I'm not gonna lie, Scissor looks really good into his team. I've got Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Close Combat, and Knockoff to pretty much cover everything I need. 208 HP, 244 attack with an Adamant Nature. The 56 speed EVs are basically benchmarking for Adamant max speed Rhyperior. Because if Rhyperior outruns Scissor, that tells me one of two things. Either he's running a Scarf set, which would be interesting, or he's running a Jolly Nature with a lot of speed investment, which means he doesn't have as much allocated to bulk, which is good knowledge to have that I can then use to my advantage. I'm running protective pads, primarily because of Garchomp. When Thomas played Rebel Trainer, he made it abundantly clear that Rough Skin Rocky Helmet Garchomp was his bring, even though Rebel Trainer didn't bring Scissor to that game. Rough Skin Rocky Helmet Garchomp was his bring to basically kind of punish Scissor. So with protective pads, I can easily pivot around with Scissor and make Garchomp less of an effective check to it, because if it's coming in, taking damage, and getting no payoff out of it because of protective pads, then that makes Garchomp significantly less valuable, because it's just getting worn down with no payoff, and setting me up to kind of make some other things work, especially if I can get into a more favorable matchup, say Mamoswine or Valiant, who I'll get to in a moment. That is basically the crux of this set. Bullet Punch is there to threaten some of his faster things, as well, especially Sneasler. U-Turn for pivoting, Close Combat to threaten things like Empoleon, Rhyperior, etc. And Knockoff again for the utility of getting rid of items. Next, let's move on to Lumity the Iron Valiant. Nothing too fancy here. I debated getting a little fancy, maybe throwing a Kevia Berry on here for the potential Sneasler Dire Claw, and maybe running Psyshock. But ultimately, I feel this set is the better idea. With 216 speed EVs and a naive nature, I am always outrunning timid max speed Thundurus if it isn't Scarfed, so I can definitely threaten that thing. Moonblast, Close Combat, Knockoff, and Vacuum Wave is the play with Life Orb. Vacuum Wave as priority allows me to... I can get Chip Off on Sneasler. It's primarily there to get around Darkrai, though, because I honestly didn't want to run Scarf Valiant. It feels pointless in a sense to bring Scarf Valiant, because I would not be surprised if he brings Scarf Sneasler, or if he can get in and have a way to proc Unburden, then Scarf Valiant is not outrunning Sneasler regardless. So I would rather take the ability to switch up my moves and hit harder than lock myself into a potential losing battle there. Not to mention with this mix set, I feel I've got a solid way of dealing with Rhyperior. Because I do remember when he played Rebel Trainer, he brought in a Terra Grass Assault Vest Rhyperior specifically to hinder Valiant. So the mix set, I can get a little more mileage out of wearing that thing down if he does in fact decide to bring the same thing. The option is on the table, I'm not going to rule it out, because Rhyperior is a problem. Speaking of problems though, let's talk about Wrath. The MVP of the season, it basically ended the season with the best kill-death ratio and had the most kills in the league. So, in terms of regular season, I do believe it is the de facto MVP because of that. So, good on you, Gyarados, for probably making the UNPL consider Tera banning you next season, and I would not be surprised if that is the case. I ran through a couple of ideas on what I could do with Gyarados, and ultimately this is the set I settled on. I've got 68 speed EVs with a Jolly Nature, so that with one Dragon Dance, I can always outrun at least a non-Scarf Thundurus. I could have benchmarked for Darkrai and Sneasler, but I wanted the bulk, and Sneasler, again, is kind of a moot point because of, well, all the things it could do to basically be stupidly fast and be a pain in my ass. With Ice Fang, I've got a way to further capitalize on his ice weakness and maybe threaten Garchomp significantly, as well as Thundurus. Earthquake pretty much takes care of everything else in terms of Terra Flying, Terra Blast. I debated going Terra Ground specifically because of Thundurus, but ultimately I talked myself out of it because Terra Flying, Terra Blast is too invaluable to me this game, so I couldn't ignore it. The reason I say that is because initially what I was planning is Terra Ground with Covert Cloak, because I am honestly expecting Thundurus to come, and I'm expecting it to be Prankster with Thunder Wave, specifically to try to hinder a Gyarados sweep before I can really get it off the ground. And I didn't want to run Terra Flying Lumberry, Covert Cloak was a nice thought for the Sneasler because of Dire Claw and potential Poison Touch if he's running a Scarf set. Because the thought process there is I Terra Ground, I'm immune to the Thunder Wave, and then I still have my Covert Cloak to address Sneasler. Unfortunately, again, the offensive presence I had with that set did not work out as well when I was looking it over. Not to mention the fact that Sneasler actually would hit harder with close combat in that scenario, which does me no favors if it's got no reason to click Dire Claw. So this is what I went with. I've got the Lumberry in case he does pull Prankster T-Wave, or if Sneasler comes in and a Dire Claw does in fact happen to get one of its status chances. But beyond that, the plan is pretty much the same as always with Gyarados. Get it set up and try to sweep, because that's what Gyarados does, and who knows, maybe this will be the time it gets stopped. To round out my roster, I have Hisui and Qwilfish and Chestnut. I am not running Spikes. That may come back to haunt me, but these sets actually do put in some work depending on the right matchups. Let's start with Mini-Star, the Hisui and Qwilfish. Obviously, with Eviolite, I've got the bulk to be able to take down its Mons. I am running Intimidate. I am aware that Defiant Thundurus is a potential option, as well as competitive Empoleon, which would not surprise me. But obviously I'm not planning on sending Hisui and Qwilfish in on Empoleon unless I absolutely have to. And as far as Thundurus goes, again, if it comes, which I'm expecting it to, I am 99.9% certain it's going to be Prankster with Thunder Wave because of Gyarados above all else. So I think I'm safe there. But Hisui and Qwilfish has the bulk to be able to tank hits. Barbarage and Crunch are ways to threaten things offensively. Haze is there to remove any boost he tries to go for, like a potential SD with Sneasler or Nasty Plot with Thundurus, just to keep him from being able to pull stuff like that. I decided to go with Toxic in my last slot, mostly because I think it fits with the general idea my team is going for here. Because working in conjunction with Scissor to kind of chip away at things, if I can Toxic some of his walls, like Rhyperior or Garchomp, or maybe even anything else that happens to catch it coming in, obviously Sneasler and Empoleon do not, but everything else, that puts them on a timer and makes their value as walls less useful, especially if I can keep chipping away at them and wearing them down, which would ultimately set up Gyarados or Iron Valiant or even Mamoswine to be able to be much bigger threats than they already are. So that is the game plan there. Because Toxic is more immediate and also gives the buff to Barbarage. Toxic Spikes is an option, but I mean, he does have ways to remove hazards, and Toxic Spikes Sneasler can just come in and absorb, so that kind of defeats the purpose of that. Again, we'll see how it plays out, but I'm confident in the set. And then Willow the Chestnut. I've got a bit of an interesting idea I'm running here, which is sub bulk up. With 56 Spadef EVs, believe it or not, on top of the 208 HP EVs, if he's running a Timid Life Orb Darkrai from full, I can just barely live either a Psychic or an Ice Beam or something along those lines. He can't Sludge Bomb because of Bulletproof. I would barely live from full and be able to wipe the thing out with a Body Press. Using Bulk Up to be able to getting behind a sub setting up Bulk Ups actually really is a good idea in my opinion. Because it helps me 1v1 Rhyperior, I could kind of take on Garchomp to some degree. Though I am half expecting that thing to have some sort of special fire move, particularly for Scissor. But Chestnut does have enough bulk to be able to take that. With Knockoff, again, with the theming, I can get rid of items to kind of make things more, kind of set things up better for everything else to kind of handle. But sub, bulk up, and body press is the main play here, and there were a lot of things I could realistically bring Chestnut in on to get behind a sub, start setting up, and then cause a whole host of problems that he has to get through my sub first before he can really address what Willow's doing. So I think that's going to do it as we go ahead and jump back over to the locker room. This is going to be a tough challenge, I'm not going to lie, but I'm confident in the team I've built. I'm confident in the strategy I've got. And all that's left to do now is put it into practice and see how well it plays out. So, with that said, I will see you guys when it's battle time. Alright, it's playoff time! So, we did exchange Mons beforehand for layout purposes, so I'm not going to be typing out what he's got. I am a bit surprised he's not bringing Thundurus, to be quite honest. Comfy's a little less surprising, but for the most part, aside from the shock of no Thundurus, this is roughly what I expected. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Mesprit lead. Garchomp or Rhyperior are also possibilities because of Scissor. I'm tempted to lead Arctic and just try to blow something back right out of the gate. I think what I'm going to do instead, though, I think I'm going to lead Ministar. And we will go from there. Because with Ministar, I can start spreading Toxic through his team. I can start trying to keep him from setting up. We will go from there. I do have options in this game, and we will make it work. Sneasler, I mean, Darkrai and Sneasler are potential issues, but I think I've got ways to deal with them. Rhyperior is going to be the biggest problem, but I think I can wear that thing down if I play my cards right. So, good luck, have fun, Thomas. It is an honor to be getting a chance to play you. And let's see how things go. Oh! He's wasting no time here. He wants Sneasler right off the... He's going Sneasler right off the bat. Okay. Interesting. I mean, I know Minisaur can kind of take you on decently well. I'm just gonna go ahead and crunch for some damage as he has U-turns out. So I am willing to bet, just because he has U-turn, since he has U-turn, I'm willing to bet he's Poison Touch with Choice Scarf. Cause an Unburdened set. An Unburdened set doesn't make sense with U-turn. And Scarf definitely makes sense because of Valiant. Still, whatever comes in is about to eat a crunch. I wonder if he's expecting me to set up hazards at this point. Or he goes into Empoleon, which works out. That's perfectly fine with me. So Ministar's still not in a bad spot, honestly. I wouldn't put it past him to set up rocks. Would not be surprised if he just tries to straight up attack as well. I'm willing to go into Warforged. If he sets up rocks, that's fine. I can take whatever hit he wants to try to throw at me. And there's also the fact that this thing, because of the crunch damage, this thing is definitely in range of a close combat, even if he's a bulkier set. If he tries to, I mean, he could pivot out. That is also a possibility. He just goes Surf. Alright. You are offensive as hell. Okay. That knocked me all the way down to 29. I am almost positive you're Modest Specs. Because that's the only thing that makes sense with that. That was raw damage. Okay. So there's a couple of options I could go with here. Given that. And I think the one I'm going to do is go into Wrath. As he goes ahead and switches. So I could have just U-turned out. I didn't want to take the gamble. I could have. I probably should have. He might just be bulky Specs. But this is fine. Kind of, sort of, not really. I would not be surprised if he's Dragon Tail and Dragon Tails me out right now. So I'm half tempted to go Ice Fang just for that reason. Because if I do call him being Dragon Tail... Yeah, that Specs Empoleon definitely threw me off. You know, I'm just gonna go for a raw Ice Fang. Take out half this thing's health. He has rough skin and rocky helmet. Yep. Figured as much. And he does Dragon Tail. Okay, I did call that. And into Chestnut. Which, honestly, is not the worst thing in the world I could have been sent into. All things considered. So he probably Dragon Tails again, or switches. So I'm seeing this as a prime opportunity to get a sub up. And start getting Willow primed and ready to start causing some problems. Willow was he goes ahead and sets up spikes, which is fine. I am fine with this, because I don't think Dragon Tail... Yeah, he would have to be Roar to pierce my sub. So, he's got Dragon Tail. He's got spikes. If he's a bulkier set, and I'm pretty sure he is, then there is no way a Dragon Tail, or... Yeah, there's no way a Dragon Tail... As he goes, Fire Blast! Okay. You know, that does make sense in retrospect. But I'm going to be able to get this bulk up. We're not in the worst of spots. See, I am at 323. Guess that wouldn't be a bad time to break out my new toy as well. Yep, I finally got my hands on one of those HP tracker bars. That is definitely under half, so a body press would kill. And I think I'm willing to go for it just to try to get rid of this thing, because I can take a Fire Blast. Yep. And this body press should get rid of Garchomp. Yep. So that is that out of the way. So the Garchomp wall is off the table. The problem is, I'm pretty sure I've lost Willow doing so, and... Warforged is less of a... Warforged has less use now, because I think it dies coming out on that spike. Because, of course, me not bringing removal. Had to figure it would cause me problems one of these days, but... I still think we're not in the worst of spots. Because I know Sneasler... I'm almost positive Sneasler's Scarfed. I know Empoleon is Specs, and I have ways around that. As he goes into Darkrai. Interesting. I am curious about that play. So... way I see it, I could either sack Warforged right now, which is feeling like the play, because I'm pretty sure I died to the spike regardless. Or... no, I'm going to stand in Body Press in case he thinks he can... okay, he's just going to go for the Psychic. Which is fine. Okay. I do not see Life Orb recoil. So that is good to know. The problem is it has gotten significantly harder to set Wrath up now. Yeah, I misplayed that for sure. That said, though, he's not Life Orb. I wouldn't be surprised if this was also Scarf. And I'm willing to go into Mini-Star. I know the Intimidate doesn't phase Darkrai, but we can still make this work. If he is Choice, he's locked into Psychic. If he's not Choiced... I'm willing to go for a Crunch and test the water... knock off! Oh! Oh, so you... okay. Yeah, this is not working out in my favor. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's about... 77% on this thing? Okay, yeah, Mini-Star just got a lot less useful now. I don't know what you are, and that is concerning to me. I'm willing to sack off Warforged to the Spike. Because with Intimidate, Ministar still has some value to me. Yeah, Scissors should drop to the Spike. Yep. As he does just go Focus Blast. Okay. So, Psychic, Knockoff, Focus Blast. I mean, this thing isn't quite in range of a Vacuum Wave. That's the problem. And this Darkrai actually just became a huge issue. My best hope would be for him to miss a Focus Blast. Or if he... I don't think he... it would depend on where his... whatever bulk he has, where that investment lies. I'm gonna go into Illumini. We're gonna take this gamble. Maybe I shouldn't have, but... 242... Yes, Focus Blast is a roll in his favor. So I'm willing to go for the Vacuum Wave here, and we will see what happens. I know he has Psychic, which would definitely take out Illumini. He withdraws. Okay, I'm fine with that. That is the Rhyperior. No, the Mesprit. I'm gonna go back into Ministar. I don't know what kind of Mesprit this is, but... yeah, I thought I had a solid game plan, but Specs Empoleon... kudos to Thomas for that bring. That one threw me so off. Not to mention the early missed call with Gyarados, because there is little to no way I'm getting that thing set up now. I can admit to that. If I somehow do, it would be a miracle. But Ministar is in. I know I take this thing on, even without my Eviolite. As he just U-turns out. Which is not fine, let's be honest, but... I'm wondering if he brought a whole bunch of choice stuff now that I'm thinking about it. I mean, I know Darkrai's not. Garchomp was kind of what I expected to be. Rhyperior hasn't even hit the field yet. But, yeah, that Specs Empoleon threw me so far off course. Wasting Willow certainly wasn't ideal either, but... to be fair, I didn't want him to predict the switch, and I don't know how much, I don't know how much value Willow still had left at the low health it was at from dealing with Garchomp. So for all I know, that could have been... Willow was... I mean, you can't blame me for wanting to play it safe regarding, as this thing comes back in now. You are definitely Specs. And there's really no point in saving Ministar. Ministar, you were such a good pickup, I will give you that. And you've served me well all season. Well, at least when I picked you up. But I think the sack is needed here to try to figure out how, if at all, I can somehow salvage this. You outspeed. Interesting. So this is definitely... See, I have no speed investment on this Qwilfish. So his speed investment is definitely... And I have to give him credit for the Ice Beam call. Because it basically prevents me from setting Gyarados up. If I wanted to consider that. Because 183. If I don't Tera, I could tank an Ice Beam, but I'm gonna go into Wrath. It's a tough call to make, but it's the call I think I need to make. And we definitely Earthquake you to at least get you out of here. It's not really gonna affect anything, because yeah, I am so far behind. This is why I said in my team builder, I was not going to doubt Thomas's record, because he is an extremely good battler. He made it to playoffs in SPL for a reason. I wanted to see how well I matched up, and, well, this is what I get for picking my poison. I've got no one to blame but myself. Okay, so I do have a +1 at least, but I don't think it's going any farther than that. Not unless I somehow miraculously am able to get a Dragon Dance off, and even then, Sneasler and Darkrai still outrun me. So I don't even know if a D-Dance would even be worth it anymore. I can at least see how he wants to play this. Because Darkrai could come in and probably pick me off at this point. Sneasler, I'm pretty sure could as well. Maybe not, actually. He does just go Rhyperior, which I'm half expecting to be the tank. I don't know what kind of set it is the problem. Or what Tera it is. Tera Grass would be interesting. You know what? I'm willing to Terrasilize and go for the Tera Blast on the off chance he does go Tera Grass. Because for all I know, that might potentially open something up. I've got nothing to lose at this point. I mean, for all I know, maybe he doesn't Tera, but he risks the Waterfall in that case. Granted, I didn't bring it, but I mean, he doesn't know that. He does Tera. Alright. Tera Grass. Nope, he actually went Tera Fairy. Which I cannot fault him for, honestly. This Tera Blast should still hurt, though, because I am a +1. It ate that. You're definitely more physically bulky. And Wrath lives that. Okay. Kind of interesting turn of events that we've got going on here. The Rhyperior... Oh! Okay. I don't think it's going to make a difference at this point, because Darkrai and Sneasler are still problems for me. But I am sorry all the same, Thomas. Holy. Yeah, okay. That was a thing that happened. Well, that's Wrath for you. It is hellbent on going down fighting. And if that crit ultimately ends up mattering, I don't think it will, especially since this thing is still a problem. But if it does, I do apologize, Thomas. I do sincerely apologize. Regardless, you definitely take Wrath out at this point, because I'm almost... I don't have any, Okay, so... There's the close combat. So, that kind of prevents me from bringing in Mamoswine, which is actually a smart call on his part. Here's the thing. Well, if he's Scarfed, he's locked into close combat, which Lumini can take. If he's not, though, it would depend on what he is if he's not Scarfed. Because Jolly would outrun me, Adamant would not. And at this point, I really have nothing to lose. Because I'm pretty sure this is gonna... I'm pretty sure this is on its way to a loss, which... Completely fair, that's what I get for picking my poison. But... I'm gonna go ahead and Moonblast, we're gonna see what happens here. If he's Scarfed, he probably switches. Though I don't think he would sack Darkrai, though. That seems senseless. I feel like Mesprit would be the play. Granted, I would pick Mesprit off, but... Yeah, it feels like as long as he has Darkrai and Sneasler, he beats me. He does withdraw. Are you sacking the Mesprit? I think that is the Mesprit. Yep. This Moonblast, definitely... You are definitely bulkier. You are quite a bit bulkier. Just based on that damage, because you barely took anything. Are you AV? I'm almost positive you're AV. I'm going to go ahead and knock off anyway. I have no reason not to. Which does get rid of Mesprit, so there's at least that. You were AV. That makes a lot of sense, honestly. So, at this point... I mean, I still lose. It's just a matter of... Yeah, Darkrai comes in now. You're not Life Orb, but I know you've got Psychic, at least. And I just kind of have to go for a Vacuum Wave. Wait, wow! Is this thing AV? You've gotta be AV if you took that. So all that remains now... All that remains is... Mamo, which... I mean, I think I picked this thing off with a Banded Ice Shard. But with Sneasler at full health, I don't think it's happening. It would be incredible if that somehow does happen. And this thing lives on 1. You know what? Fair at this point. Bulky Darkrai. I gotta give kudos to that. That was not a call I was expecting. But yeah, this thing is at full health. There is absolutely no way I take a close combat. I'll at least Ice Shard for the damage, because why not? And that is going to do it. GG, Thomas. That's what I get for picking my poison. I prepped to the best of my ability. I gave it my best shot, but I knew this was going to be a tough challenge, and that is why I walked into it. And you know what? Even though it was quite a bit due to the crit Gyarados got, which I will again apologize for, despite the difference in our records this season, the fact that I still brought this to a 1-0 against you, I consider that a good sign of it, at least of where I'm potentially heading as a draft format player and where I still have to go. That was incredibly good prep on your part. The Specs Empoleon definitely threw me for a loop. That was, yeah, that one That one threw me off significantly. So that is the end of my UNPL season, but honestly, all things considered, I'm happy with where things went. The fact that I ended the season with 2 losses, 3rd overall seed, 2nd seed in the Naranja Division. All in all, it was a huge turnaround from last season. And I definitely take that as a good sign. I love this team I played with. It was a lot of fun getting to play with it every week. I do thank each and every member of my roster for all the work they put in to help me basically have my redemption story. Even if we didn't quite go all the way, well, there's always the future. Maybe I will be back in the UNPL to give it another shot. And I'm sure by that point people will learn not to let me have Gyarados. Or at least Tera ban it. There's other leagues too. You never know what the future holds. And who knows? Maybe my time will come and I will get that elusive crown at some point. But, with all that said, I thank you guys so very much for following me throughout this entire season. I have been Ruppy. And whatever the future holds, my Columbus Swoo and I will see you guys next time. Take care.